From the 10-time All-Star considering leaving the 76ers after picking up the player option to the MVP wanting the beard to stick around for another season, here's all about Joel Embiid's future depending on a huge trade. Did you know it involves James Harden, who's in talks to leave Philadelphia? Don't shoot the messenger, but the latest on the beard's future is that despite picking up the player option, he's set to depart Philly. This might come as a surprise for fans, but fact is, James was always going to leave the Sixers by the end of the 2022-23 season. The rumors emerged mid-season, with plenty of them linking him with the move away before the 2023 trade deadline. I don't know what went wrong. Funnily enough, neither does Embiid. Of course, that loss to the Boston Celtics hurt the Sixers big time. But there's not a lot more the franchise itself could have done to avoid it. Harden's not playing around, though. No one knows what he wants from his time in the NBA. And if he's chasing a ring, then his best shot has to be with Joel in Philly. But the rumors suggest something different entirely, with James letting the front office know he's leaving in the summer of 2023. But if you're confused about his decision, don't worry, I'll explain his decision-making at least as much as I understood. The first question, based on common sense, is that if Harden really wanted to leave the 76ers, then why would he pick up the player option? Valid question, because by opting in with that option, Harden's given up his power to decide on his next team. If he'd opted for free agency, the Beard would have been free to sign with any team that approached him, without agreeing to a trade package with Philadelphia, because Harden wouldn't be bound to the franchise. Picking that option up means Harden's given up his free will, and now whichever team wants him will need to agree a trade package, giving up plenty in return to Philly. My guess is that Daryl Morey, the president of the Sixers, convinced Harden to opt in, explaining how he wouldn't be able to command more in free agency than what he's making right now. By opting in, the Sixers can also benefit from a trade and get some decent resources in return. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it played out, because James acted like a proper team player back in the 2022 offseason as well, choosing a cheaper contract, so the 76ers could invest in another superstar. Hopefully the fans will cut him some slack, because if this is why Harden opted in, then he's already done more for Philly than he did for the Rockets. On the topic of the Rockets, Houston was the preferred destination for the Beard. Why didn't that materialize? Well, a lot of that has to do with their new coach, Ime Udoka, who had absolutely no plans of running it back with Harden as their main point guard in Houston. He wanted to take the franchise in a different direction, something I'm sure James and much of the Rockets front office didn't agree with. And so, he pushed Houston to complete a deal for Fred VanVleet, and now Harden doesn't have a lot of options left. Don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic player, and plenty of teams would still give up quite a bit to sign him, but there aren't many preferred landing spots for the former MVP. Based on the most recent speculation, Harden's most likely landing spot's Los Angeles, with the Clippers working on a trade to get Harden to LA. I don't know if they'll be able to pull it off, but this trade deal is bound to dominate the summer of 2023, along with the Damian Lillard saga. Harden couldn't be clearer in his decision. He's told the franchise how he's got no plans of spending another season in the city of brotherly love. Sources close to the player keep on confirming his desire to move to LA. I mean, can you blame the man for wanting to leave Philadelphia for Los Angeles? He's in his 30s. Let him enjoy the last few years by staying in Los Angeles. Who cares about winning another ring? The Clippers, on the flip side, have hit a roadblock of sorts because anything they offer in a deal for the veteran PG seems to be too less for the Sixers. In fact, some report that Morey's demands for Harden suggest he's not too keen on letting the Beard leave. A twist in a trade involving Harden. Where have I seen that movie before? Interestingly, some reliable reports confirmed how the Sixers' plans regarding Harden have completely changed. The franchise is looking to keep a hold of the 10-time All-Star, with most rival executives believing the Sixers had no intention of sanctioning an exit for the Beard. Despite having a really good working relationship with Morey, the former Nets guard has lost it with the front office and is upset with the way Morey handled his situation in free agency. Maybe it wasn't Harden being nice. Maybe it was another very smart move from the Sixers president, getting the most out of the Harden contract. But this situation could have major consequences on the franchise. Think about it. Is Morey willing to let this drag out like the Ben Simmons saga? I don't think that'd be a smart move. because Harden's also not as naive as Simmons, and he'll definitely follow in the Australians' footsteps, potentially leaving the franchise in shambles by not playing. The problem is, Joel Embiid's future is very much linked to this Harden mess. And if the Sixers don't sort it out soon, there could be more than one departure from Philly in the 23 offseason. I'm sure everyone and their dog has heard about the Knicks' interest in Embiid, but that could turn into a reality, especially if Philly shows a lack of ambition around the Harden trade. A lot of NBA franchises are showing interest in the Embiid situation, and they're hopeful that the 76ers will fumble the chance to keep Joel, and that's when they'll attack like vultures. To make matters worse, the Sixers were one of the losers in free agency, with many believing the franchise should have let Harden walk, while spending big money on other players to surround Embiid with talent. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. They made some horrible decisions in free agency, because I'm certain no one's thrilled about the Patrick Beverley coup. If Harden ends up leaving, Embiid's situation becomes a lot more tricky for the Sixers to handle. No one knows how he'll react. They might keep him for the 2023-24 season, but it wouldn't shock anyone if Embiid requested a trade by the 2024 offseason. And if that happens, plenty of teams will give up everything to get their hands on the reigning MVP. More importantly, the Sixers can't afford to wait around with someone like Harden, especially if you take the player's history into context. I understand Morey's the type of executive to do things on his own terms, but you can't always get your way. Two alphas don't work, and that's the problem here for the Sixers as well. One of Morey or Harden will need to give in, and it's in the Sixers' best interest that Morey does it, because James has shown his ability to leave a franchise up in flames when he leaves. Let's just say he's not afraid to create a scene, and the Sixers have already wasted enough of Embiid's peak on random drama. If they want to keep him happy, they should sort out the Harden situation one way or another. But the latest news suggests Embiid wants Harden to stay, which means the Sixers don't really have many options. The MVP thought Harden also wanted the same thing as he did, which was to run it back with the same roster, plus minus some peripheral changes. But turns out the two aren't on the same page, with Harden looking for an exit, and Embiid hoping he can convince the Beard to stay for one more season. Interestingly, the franchise holds all the cards, and if Joel can reach out to James, then there's the possibility to avoid things getting ugly. The duo was seen partying together in the 23 offseason, and that's given fans some hope of Harden staying for the 23-24 season. It's not too hard to understand why the Cameroonian wants James to stick around. After all, Harden contributed big time to his MVP winning campaign, and Embiid thinks they can do one better as a team too. There's no doubt that James's contributions as a creator and as a scorer were crucial in the Sixers' playoff run, and under a new coach, there's some hope they can do even better. For that to happen, the MVP will need to put in a shift during the offseason and not take no for an answer. If it doesn't happen, though, Embiid's not going to burn bridges with Harden and says he'll understand his decision to move on. So, from the MVP wanting the Beard to stick around for another season, to the 10-time All-Star considering leaving the 76ers after picking up the player option, that was all about Joel Embiid's future being dependent on a huge trade.